Presentation today is about the differences between the Power Platform AI Builder and Azure AI Builder. Just how to understand the difference between the two platforms and how to pick two different projects. It's very common for people to bump into that situation, since if you have Azure, many customers will have a Power Platform or vice versa, and the Power Platform AI Builder is quite powerful, but it is more the main difference is, if you go in Google, what's the difference between the two? You're gonna get this similar information. Power Platform is main feature is codeless, low code, and the AI is integrated with the other features of Power Platform, like Power Apps and Power Automate.
Yep.
And then, like, you might think that, like, oh, I'm going to do all my entire AI project around just using Power Platform, never mind Azure. But what I'm going to cover right now through those slides is that you might need, after all, to have some Azure, or you might even leave all your AI into the Azure side, integrating with the Power Platform.
Yep.
So one of the
Sorry
things.
to interrupt. I'll just leave you, like, the floor is yours, and I'll just be in background. Thank you very much.
All right, cool. The first thing, like, people will mention when you have discussion between Power Platform and Azure specialists is integration and codeless integration. That is the Power Automate on the side of a Power Platform. But Azure does offer a codeless option in Logic Apps. And if you go check all the controls offered by Logic Apps can be used by both Logic Apps and Power Automate. For AI, Power Automate does have its own controls, but you cannot consume on the other way around. You cannot consume Power Automate controls like this one inside of Logic Apps. So to this point, the first thing, like, it is, if you decide to use Azure, it does not mean you don't have a codeless option. You do have Logic Apps. Here is like a sample. I just have a Power Automate in here. This is not doing anything. I just put like one example of a Power Automate version of document intelligence, and the same one, this one is from Logic Apps. So why you don't have, why consider Azure, and why you don't have the Power Automate tasks in Logic Apps? The Azure side will have the REST APIs exposed by default, while Power Automate's more, the AI Builder was probably designed to fit inside of a Power Platform, not considering integration. And I found this is a bit difficult to find this clearly stated in documentation, but like looking around, I found this interesting paragraph in the comment on this FAQ saying AI Builder document processing is built in on top of Azure Form Recognizer. This one is specifically mentioning the form recognizer, but if you start like to play with both platforms, you're going to notice first features are added to Azure, and later similar features appear in Power Platform. But it's still like from time to time, like not long ago, we had a huge revamp on Azure AI Builder. We had like a whole new studio. I believe the version was before we were on a version 2 and went to version 3 for a while. Even if you use Logic Apps only, some services might not be immediately available on Codeless tasks. But any new services enhancements will be always available through the API in the Azure side. You can just go around that using tasks like HTTP. So you can create your models in Azure. And you still can use in either Logic Apps or Power Automate using the HTTP. It's a little bit, there will be no shortcuts. The built-in tasks that we have right now, the output is already ready to be passed to the following tasks. With this one, you're going to have like to do this, to fetch, to interact in another one, more tasks to parse the JSON. Still, now I'm going to show the studios. The second part of the Codeless confusion is how to train your models. As you see, I'm mostly covering document intelligence side. We had a lot of interesting previous sessions already covering OpenAI. So I'm going to cover most document intelligence. So this is the Power Platform AI Builder training studio, and it's quite similar to the Azure. So and actually, if you go and look right now, this is what is there for Power Platform. I found a little bit behind the Azure one because you load your PDF and then you need to create the fields you want to extract, and then later you apologies, my power, I create these slides. Let's see if it moves. No, it doesn't move. It's not moving. I had an animation on this slide, but it's not covering. But well, anyway,
okay.
The one difference that I noticed, the current version of Power Platform Studio, you need to first create the fields you want to extract. Then you're going to come here and drag a little box and assign them. While the Azure one, that looks like incredibly similar, you can drag around. And then when you drag around, it prompts you to give a label name. Probably because when I created my model here, I had the option to select the latest version. But yeah, again, in terms of Codeless, my point, in terms of Codeless, there is no difference when you're training your models. You have a studio, and in Azure, you get the new perks first, and eventually that you make to Power Platform AI Builder, but there might be a gap, 3 months, 6 months, I don't know. Yeah, so summary, like is in Logic Apps is very similar to Power Automate, and the only difference is in the DevOps and connections. When you use Power Automate, you don't need to setting up the connections is much simpler. Still, it's not like a big, massive difference. Now, in terms of services, I found this handy chart showing what's available in Power Platform AI Builder. And yeah, the basics, document processing. And right now, I think this is quite recent. It's been like on the last few months. They added the prompts with GPT. And this is what you have in Azure. And there's quite a few extra options, not mentioning what's not included here is machine learning. So when you talk about what you can do with Azure AI, there's a lot more. There is the OpenAI part that's been covered in the previous presentations. The bot service is one that is arguably far more complicated than what Power Platform offers. I will not cover Copilot Studio on this presentation, but Copilot Studio is much easier than use bot. Anything else is quite similar in a lot more flexible than AI Builder. So, for example, yeah, if you look over document processing, one feature that is only in Azure at this time is custom classification model. So imagine a situation where you have different streams of documents. For example, you have a finance or insurance, and you request your customers to send applications in supporting documents. So, for example, you're going to have like an application with your personal details and what you want. And usually this company is also going to ask you for some sort of ID or supporting documents. So each one of these documents are going to have a different extraction model. So how do you orchestrate that? Then comes the custom classification model. On the custom classification model, you can identify the document. So you can create a Power Automate or a Logic apps that will have the custom classification model first saying, hi, this is an ID, and redirecting to the extraction model, ID extraction model. If you try to do that only with AI Builder, you're going to have to find a way to put the logic inside of a Power Automate. Power Platform also offers code. So the point is, it starts to become simpler to do with Azure if you have a certain level of complexity. The prompts also like quite interesting. There is not that much difference, and that's one that a lot of people is looking to using right now. One thing that you need to know about the difference between prompts for Power Platform and Azure. Look like at this point, it's a generic GPT. So I didn't find any evidence this can be connected to OpenAI, where you train with your own data. We know that option is already available in Azure. You can bring your own data to your GPT. And another interesting point that I noticed, that's a good way to demo how you get first whatever is added first to the AI comes to Azure, but might not be in Power Platform. If you see here on the studio, you have the space to play with your prompts. And on the right, you have parameters like temperature. And this is the prompt task for logic apps. And the prompt task for logic apps does offer you the ability to change the temperature. You are not going to find this in the Power Automate just yet. And then comes to the cost, because oh, all right. So so far we concluded that Power Platform is good. It does have the codeless option, but so Azure, and Azure has more flexibility, more models. If it's better for a large, more complex project. What about the money? Because you might think everything is included, but it's not quite like that. Let's first take a look into Azure. This is like the price list for document intelligence. So you have the pay-as-you-go, $50 for 1,000 pages. That's the most expensive approach to go. But one cool thing about Azure, you, at least for the in this case for the document intelligence, you can consider doing with containers and get a good discount on the price. But even if you want to host in Azure, there is the commitment tiers that will give you a pretty decent discount. If you have if you already have like enterprise, I mean, a lot of other services with Microsoft, you might want to reach your account manager. You might find you might be able to get even more on the top of this, but this is what you get if you go and take a look in the price list. And another interesting feature of Azure is complete disconnected container. The hybrid is you host your models in a container, but you still use Azure Portal for governance. Now, in the Power Platform, it starts to get a little bit confusing with what they call credits and units. So if you look here on the side on the left, this is what you get for free. I mean, for free, included, what you get included on your licensing. And you look into these numbers, you might think like you're going to get a lot, but you got to understand the conversion to credits. What's not that much. So looking to the calculator, you have that's the same price as the pay-as-you-go, but this is not a pay-as-you-go service. You got to buy the add-on. You get every month, you get a little bit of credits that come together with your license. But if you're going to do something like that, 20,000 pages in a month, you're going to have to purchase an add-on. And here on the bottom, you have discounts you can get if you buy large amounts. If you get 50 units, that's a lot. That's a huge commitment. The price is half price. So in the end, yeah, if you need to process a lot of data, it is not cheaper than Azure. It can be more likely to be more expensive. So for small projects, maybe still an option, but when you start to get that big. So the AI build, the price becomes competitive if you can buy large bundles up front. Azure costs same on pay-as-you-go, but offers monthly discount tiers and extra discounts if you're hosting containers. If your project needs a model only available in Azure but use Dynamics 365 or Canvas app, you can consider leaving out the AI side in Azure for simple. It's much easier to control the cost and governance. In terms of DevOps, that's when Power Platform shines. DevOps in Azure, if you work with Azure, you already know you're gonna have to use something like Terraform, Biceps, templating. You create the infrastructure, then you deploy the code. While Power Platform, you create a production instance, just clicking buttons. You could consider manual import that it's not really DevOps. If you want to use, but everything fits inside of a solution. It's very simple to move from one place to the other. And even if you want to use the Azure DevOps to do that, it's easier than Azure. If you are going to do in Azure, you got to start with the infrastructure. That's an example of Terraform to create the AI services. The models, that one good thing like to remember, the models are not that straightforward to move around. If you can, for example, deploy this and create the services in production and use the Studio AI to manually export, but there is also an API provided by Azure, so you can automate and move the models across. Another interesting thing about Azure, your models will be saved in you can save them in blob Azure containers, while Power Platform is going to be saved in Dataverse. Yeah, that's like one way you can manually export a model from one environment to the other. Use the copy. You go inside of the Azure Studio. With the copy, you can select a different subscription. In this case, your Pro subscription. But you can also do that programmatically. Yeah, and again, like what if, considering the architecture, what if another systems needed to access that? You probably want to leave everything in Azure that has all the Azure integration in AD and all the services you need to integrate with other systems. If you decide to do everything in Power Platform, you'll be very complicated to integrate with other systems. You're gonna have to use Power Automate to expose that. There's other ways, but like it's not as clean. In conclusion, Azure AI pros, you have more models up front, like if it's going to be released anytime soon, it's going to be here first. The storage is more flexible, it's cheaper. You do need some coding knowledge, but again, if you get to the point you need to do more, you're going to have to bring the specialists. The DevOps is downside. It's more complicated than Power Platform. And yeah, one good way to when you bring the word codeless, Power Platform is full codeless, or most of the time you can do a lot of stuff codeless, while Azure, best way to say is low code. And yeah, to wrap, you may want to consider using Azure along Power Platform depending on the complexity. AI Builder is native of Power Platform and does simplify the integration if your project is 100% Power Platform. You need to prioritize Azure if solution needs to fit into your large enterprise, integrating with many other services. So I guess it's almost time. We have a few minutes for a Q&A.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Wow, that's interesting considerations in there. I think like from your perspective, right? Or at least like for me, just looking at that, I think I would look at doing like proof of concepts to validate the approach, right? In your view, what would you do, like depending on requirements that you get from customers?
Yeah, you need to understand the whole AI project, and sometimes like you get caught with just the beginning of this, and later on somebody says like, oh, can you bring more documents right now or more prompts? And you're gonna find you might need to move to Azure in the end to satisfy those needs, or ended up with a lot of complexity in Power Platform, defeating the purpose of a Codeless.
Yeah. It's always tricky, right? I would say, but like it's always about like trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
If like application grows, makes sense to transition, I guess, to Azure, right? Yeah. No, interesting. Like I'm not seeing like any other questions in here. I'd just like to thank you very much just to come and feeling like for the session. It was great just to know like this comparison, right? I hope like this helps like people with like some understanding and considerations, like when bring like the Power Platform AI Builder or Azure AI Builder. No, that's great. Thank you very much, Bruno. I guess, wow, you can stay connected. We're going to have like the full day. And for the audience, we're going to have like this little break, and we come next with Dylan. Thank you very much.
Bye.